Jesus was once asked, teach us to pray, and he answered, by praying. Richard Foster says, by praying, we learn to pray. Philip Yancey once wrote, we learn to pray by praying. Mother Teresa was once asked, how do we learn to pray? And she answered, by praying. Tyler Staton is saying today, this teaching series won't do you any good if it stops at teaching, because prayer is more practice than theory. But I like the way Don John Chapman said it best. Pray as you can, not as you can't. And so I want to challenge you, before you leave this room today, to make a commitment to pray as you can over the next 10 weeks. That's now until March the 1st. Pray as you can. What do I mean? I mean, if you can't pray for an hour, if you've never done that before, do not try it. It will feel like forever. Pray for a minute. Pray as you can. And if you zone out every time you pray at home, cool. Pray while you're walking down the sidewalk. Pray as you can. If you can't pray adoration, then don't fake it. Pray your complaints, your anger, and your confusion. If you can't concentrate to pray out loud, then journal your prayers with paper and pen. If you can't pray with hope and with faith, God's not bothered by that. He wants you to tell him about your doubts and disappointment. Pray as you can. Before you leave this room today, make a commitment to pray as you can. A commitment to put your phone on the other side of the room so that when your alarm goes off, instead of hitting the snooze in the morning, you spend the first 20 minutes of the day in conversation to God and see what he can do with that. Or put on instrumental music on your commute home from work every day and begin to process the events of the day in conversation with God. Or get together with friends for an hour before the worship gathering and begin to pray and see how that might shift and change your worship experience when you come in with a heart of expectation. Or just speak a sentence or two to God every day on your walk from your front door to the bus stop. Pray as you can. And if you're more comfortable with cynicism than you are with innocence, if you're unsure about your motives, afraid of silence, and pretty confident you aren't doing it right, you are in the perfect starting place. Pray as you can. And somewhere along the way, you will make the most important discovery of your life, the love the Father has for you. That discovery is God's end of the deal. Your part is just to show up honestly. The one non-negotiable rule when it comes to prayer is to show up and keep showing up with brutal honesty. And that invitation is for everybody. If you have never uttered a word in prayer, you should know that it took one humble request from a career thief for someone crucified next to Jesus to find himself living forever in paradise with him. And if prayer for you is a source of a deep wound or disappointment, remember that when trust is broken in relationship, it does not get healed by maintaining distance. It gets healed by re-engaging that relationship. Healing requires re-engaging, and I will not pretend that it is easy, but it is the place of healing. And I was actually thinking just this morning of a TV series that I watched a few years ago called Escape from Dannemora. About a prison break that happened in New York State, actually in the last decade, I think. But the way that it happened is one prisoner crawled through the ducts of this prison and went down and stood next to this concrete wall in the sewage pipes or something like that in a prison with a tiny little hammer that he had snuck in, and just every night while everyone else slept, just banged and banged and banged against this wall. And almost every night there was no discernible difference he had made in the wall. But he did that for months and months and months until he had torn a hole in it and walked out to freedom. And I just have this sense that there's some among us who have built walls of disappointment in our relationship with God. And so we have a manageable faith of our own construction. But the truth is that we are imprisoned by the spirituality of our own making. And prayer is not dynamite, it's a tiny hammer. And the journey that you're being invited to is not one of instant breakthrough. It is one of going into the secret place with God night after night after night and just banging and banging and banging and seeing no difference most of the time. But the result of pursuing him in the secret place will be breakthrough and freedom. You may not get it all at once, but it will be breakthrough and freedom from the cage of spirituality that you've constructed for yourself. And then finally, if you're years into a life of mature prayer, and you're beginning to wonder if there's anything left to discover, I just want to remind you that you're going to spend eternity in the presence of God and never reach the end of him. Never lose a sense of wonder at his goodness. Never grow bored of his presence. Never have him all figured out. There is an infinitum of discovery in this invitation we call prayer. So pray as you can. That's an invitation for everybody, the rookies, the jaded, the faithful, and everyone in between.